Can
Hey,
can you believe it?
I think I restarted my internet, so hopefully that helps.
Oh, I'm sure. It's just I don't think it's us. I wasn't kidding about the sunspots. I sent you an instant message. There's actually an increase in sunspot activity this summer, which is supposed to interfere with global communications.
Oh,
Um, and if that Nicolas Cage movie with Knowing, remember
oh
that,
gosh.
where it was the sunspots that spoiler alert, three, two, one, killed everyone, wiped out everyone on the planet. That was why. So,
Damn you, Nicolas Cage.
oh, Nicolas Cage, uh, you and your eyeliner. Uh, I'm serious. There's something. He's one of those guys that he's just going to get a little bit older and kind of like Paul McCartney, but much younger, I think, for Nick Cage. He's going to turn into somebody's Aunt Sadie or something. Everybody's got an Aunt Sadie, that kind of older woman who used to be a guy.
I see that. I see that.
Yeah, there's even something, when you've got that much money, you'd think you could get better hair or something. I don't. It, he's just turned into this self parody where he used to be cool and now it's Nick
Was
Cage.
it? Was it cool?
I'm
Was it?
thinking back. Actually, that
I love Nicholas. I mean, a lot of his movies that I like that he's in are kind of I like around him. Kind of like I just watched Con Air for the 80 millionth time.
hmm
I love that movie as terrible as it is, but one of the reasons I love it is because he's so bad.
that's
Why don't you
interesting.
put the money back in the box? It's so bad. But John Malkovich is awesome.
That's funny because I love John Cusack in that as the only FBI agent ever to wear sandals. As
Right?
the hippie FBI agent. And I have a fondness for any movie with Danny Trejo in it.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Uh,
I think that was like the first movie I ever saw him in as Juanillo 23.
I even watched Machete.
That was a great movie.
Well,
It's
sorta.
one of those movies where we're in the room screaming, being like, "Yeah!" Even though it was terrible. Oh my god! Ew! Ew! The pool scene! Ew! It's coming back. No.
Was that the one where some stripper on a pole got shot and her breast implant exploded? Or maybe I'm thinking of Crank or something.
I
Yeah.
don't know, but that sounds wonderful.
Actually, I think that was a Jason Statham movie. Yeah, actually, it was. Yes. Although there's so much that there's tonally, there's a lot of crossover there. I can see why my neurons got confused. So,
Yeah.
so before Skype crashes on us again, you got to tell us about. I want to make sure I get this title correct. A self-published collection, virtuoso at masturbation and more humorous musings.
Yes.
I feel like I should read it with some organic raspberries and perhaps some Dijon mustard in the back of my limo.
It's not that classy.
So is
But yeah,
that
I mean, this is going to be my first time self-publishing something, so I'm kind of nervous about that. Just mainly the formatting issues, but on my Facebook page for the past couple years, I've been doing these deep thoughtsy, which clearly I stole the deep thoughts thing from Jack Handy
right?
uh, from SNL, and they were just stupid little things that I would put on my page and just hashtag them. And the people that followed, they seemed to like them a lot. So I decided to gather a bunch together and put them in a book. And I've illustrated some of them. I'm a terrible illustrator, which I think adds to everything. And
You're really
I
selling me now. Yeah.
actually asked people on my page to submit illustrations. So there's going to be some kind of the masses art out there in the book. And yeah, the title comes from one of the deep thoughtseize, which was I can't remember it word for word, but it's I'm familiar with the phrase "unlucky at cards, lucky at no, unlucky at cards, unlucky at love," but I'm more familiar with the phrase "unlucky at cards, unlucky at love, virtuoso at masturbation." So I just chose one and decided that would be the most catching title.
I think that would be catchy. It's kind of funny what sticks with you because I haven't watched SNL in a long time, and I don't think it's been funny for a long time. But I do remember those Jack Handy's thoughts, and
Yeah.
like, if you tie antlers to the head of a child, he will resemble a deer. It's just
That's what my favorite one is. Oh, I think one of the worst things you can do as an actor is to forget your lines, then get so flustered you start stabbing the other actors.
I love
So they all
that.
have kind of that sort of feel to them. So I hopefully the book will be out in a couple of months, but with formatting a self-published book for the first time and putting in illustrations and stuff like that, who knows?
Illustrations in self-publishing is definitely difficult.
Yeah,
Are you going to get somebody else to format it for you?
I wasn't planning on it.
You know, I wouldn't suggest to anybody that they format something simple. Like I think it's good to learn how to do it yourself.
Mhm.
However, if you've got illustrations in the book, I would definitely send it off to somebody who's formatted before because I've
Yeah,
formatted a bunch of books. I don't know illustrations in self-published like as that's tough.
yeah. I was gonna like play around with it for maybe a week and then drink a lot
Hmm.
and then then maybe decide to submit it to
That
somebody. But
that's
first,
the
I need to try and fail.
yes, and as I recall, that's definitely everybody's performance arc
Yeah.
as they attempt that the first time, and by the time you do it several times over, you sort of the thing is if you do it a lot but close together, it seems like oh this is easy. Why did I ever have trouble with this?
Mhm.
Getting rid of those indents, blah blah blah, or putting in those indents, whichever. But when even like if I have it spaced out by several months, I go, I sort of remember how to do this. It's,
Yeah.
I don't know. It can be difficult, and it's funny because when you read some information on the net by people who are book designers or people who are expert at formatting,
Mhm.
they're very, very critical and very, very picky about formatting, much more than any reader actually is.
Oh, sure.
So I wrote about this recently on my blog about how if you go to a surgeon and ask him, what should we do? They'll say, cut. And if you go to an acupuncturist, all your problems will be solved with these little needles. And if you go to a book designer, it's like, oh, you need me, baby.
I
And
did have my friend Kenneth W. Kane, who is a great author as well, and he also writes little like children's books, illustrated ones. He was very kind and gave me some templates. So I think those will help out, and then once I'm ready to pull my hair out, maybe I'll just be like, oh, okay, I need not templates, I need someone else's hand actually doing this, but we'll see. Maybe
so,
I'll get lucky.
so when were you first published?
I was first published when I was 25, so just about 5 years ago.
Okay.
Um, or I guess, yeah, like 5 years ago. It was my Arthurian novel, Camelot Lost, and I had submitted it to a whole bunch of people and got a whole bunch of rejections because everyone thought it was more of the same, and they thought because there happened to be women in it, it was automatically Mists of Avalon.
Hmm.
I don't know how you write Arthurian legend without putting women in it, but um, uh, yeah. So
I think that's the gay version.
yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. Actually, I could read that.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, so it got rejected a lot, and I eventually went with the often panned Publish America,
Mm.
which is actually based in my town. And so if you ever look up anything about Publish America, they really don't reject anything ever, even if it's the same page repeated over and over and over again.
Right.
So I just went with it. I edited it myself. They did the cover. They did the format. It was basically like self-publishing, except they did all the work. Or I guess print on demand, you would call it. But as bad a reputation as that place has, having that novel published, I think really helped me with the next one because I had a credit of some sort.
Right.
And I didn't say, and it was published under Jessica Benito because I was not married at the time. But I absolutely was not from Publish America, Jessica Benito's new novel. I was not saying who published that book. So, but I think it really helped me, even though it seems to be the one that people have read the least of.
And would pins be the most popular?
I think Rabbits in the Garden is probably the most popular. And my cat's like back on my desk.
Yeah, little photobomb.
I think Rabbits in the Garden is definitely it's my best selling. So and I think it appeals to a wider audience than pins with all the boobies and vaginas.
Funny, I wouldn't have thought that would be the formula that would
you
not
would
be as popular.
Think so. Well, when anybody asks me to describe pins in as few words as possible, I just say blood spattered titties. To me, that sells a book. But, apparently, there's this group of people that doesn't really like blood spattered titties.
No, I think you're wrong about that. I think they say they're against
it. Well, when we're at conventions and stuff, Postmortem Press president Eric Beebe would say, I think we need to sell pins in a brown paper bag. Because, right on the front, it's a woman who kind of looks like she's diddling herself.
Well, this is the beauty.
I think a lot of people walk up to that table and they're like, oh, and then their wife walks up or something. It's like, I'm looking at this child's book.
Yeah. But I think that's the beauty of ebooks is that the ebook is the brown paper bag. Because you can be reading anything you want on an ebook and nobody's looking at the cover going, what do you think you're doing reading that on the subway?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's why we saw a lot more ebooks of those.
Well, why the move to self-publishing with this particular one? Is this kind of a pet project or?
Yeah, I've never self-published anything before, and I know a lot of self-published authors that do very well. And because this was kind of born online, with the Facebook page, I thought maybe it was better just to stick with it. Also, I didn't know how to sell that to like a publisher, like the concept so much. I also didn't try. So,
That's my motto, as a matter of fact. Never try.
I was not successful at it, but I also didn't try. I wanted to keep this one close and, really have this be my experiment with self-publishing and see how it works out. And maybe in the future, if it works out a bit, I might release some novellas or short story collections. Who knows? I kind of just go by the seat of my pants and see where it takes me.
Well, you're officially a hybrid now then, because it's funny. Somebody, there's the indie movement to it, and people, I think, are kind of calming down about the Vive la Revolution kind of thing.
Yeah.
And now it's like, I'm just trying to, put my books out there kind of thing. But I think I've coined a new term, a traddy, for traditional author. Oh, you traddy. And
I know that's true because sometimes I refer to myself as an indie author and someone's like, no, you're not self-published, you're not indie. And I'm like, I don't know. I think I'm small press. Mm-hmm. I even though it's traditional, I still think that it's not a big six. I'm still trying to tread water like the indies
Hmm.
too. So tratty, I can deal with that.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. But I've coined a term, and I expect it to go viral across the internet. And I'm waiting for the royalties to come in. It's going to be awesome. Trademark. How did you make your money? Did you publish a lot of books? I published a lot of books. They never made any money. However, trademarking. I'm a trademark troll.
There you
Uh,
go.
so before Skype kicks out on us again, I want to hear about the Dark and Bookish tour and the documentary that's coming in July 2014. You Was this about you going on a bus for 30 days with a bunch of men? What's going
Uh,
on?
well, that seems to be the long and short of it. I was actually the last author selected for this project. Max Booth, Jay Wilburn, Derek Derrimer, and Adam Millard, they had put this project together, and they were searching for the fifth and final author. And they let me know that I was in consideration. I mean, I think you would need a female perspective on this sort of things. It's definitely going to be about indie authors, small presses, the speculative fiction community as far as writers and readers, and really shining a light on being a struggling author in this era of publishing. So when they let me know that I was the fifth and final author, I was like, oh my gosh, it's going to be amazing! It's going to be a bus with boys, writer boys.
Yeah, we
But
don't
I think
bathe.
it's
We don't
probably going to
bathe.
be. I mean, there's no way I could ever turn down an experience like that. It's going to be amazing, and getting to go across the country to all kinds of different conventions and really tell the story of, I mean, our stories, but also the stories of the readers, because we're definitely going to interact with everybody.
Interesting. So, this is going to happen, or?
It's going to happen in July 2014. We're raising funds on Indiegogo right now. We're just in phase one. It's very much at the beginning. But there's a lot of cool stuff coming down the pipeline that we're going to use to hopefully fund the tour and the documentary, maybe some anthologies of the author's work and all kinds of fun stuff. And there's like a YouTube channel, and it's gonna be really cool. I'm really excited about it.
So,
Except for the smelly bus.
yeah, well, I told you, writer boys don't bathe. But
Actually, that's good. I'm not a big fan of bathing either. Clearly by my Zach Morris hair.
I just, for the drama that a documentary needs, I'm just thinking, what's the reality show non-reality that they're going to introduce? First off, they're going to have to insist that you take your ring off, so you'll be chased
Of course.
around the bus.
No,
uh,
it's probably going to be so embarrassing. At the beginning of the documentary, I fully aim on calling it just the movie, the slow movie of Jessica getting fat. 'Cause I mean, like, how am I supposed to exercise? I do Just Dance on Wii as my exercise. I don't think I can do that. So I'm just going to be stuck on a bus drinking beer and just slowly gaining weight throughout the documentary.
that's going to be awesome. You know, the the other.
I have to start. I'm gonna have to work out really hard before it, so I'll like start it like.
How many authors are there altogether?
5.
Okay, so I can think of another dramatic angle on this that is going to be absolutely awesome and horrifying. Is And a lot of people, they aren't aware of this, but the two things about book signings. One is, if you manage to get people to come to a book signing, which often doesn't happen, uh, that's the first challenge. The second challenge is, somebody shows up and they don't talk to you about the book that you've got in front of them. They talk about your last book.
Yeah.
And the third thing is, you have 5 authors side by side by side on tables, and somebody's going to have a line, and
Yeah.
somebody is going to fantasize about stabbing the guy with the line. And by the end of this tour, I predict that someone will be murdered.
Yeah. By the end of the tour, at least 2 of us will need bail money.
Yeah,
That is true.
it'll and the prime suspect will be the one who sells the least books.
Yeah, there's like, I think it's going to be quite an experience having so many writers, together, because I mean, honestly, I don't really hang out with that many writers except online.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really have any. I don't do writer groups in my town or anything like that. So that's going to be a bit. I think I foresee a tug of war thing kind of happening for attention, which I don't like to lose. I definitely am an attention whore. So
you sound like you need a podcast.
So I once I start drinking, I rattle on a bit about a lot of stupid things. So that's going to be interesting in a documentary. Well, I'm gonna have to take some forget-me-nows. Is
it Heineken or Molson's or one?
Oh, yeah, just, well, I guess I'm going to have to drink whatever I can get my hands on, because I'm going to be broke for a month.
Well, actually, that's taking a month off. Like, will you be able to write on the bus?
I would go crazy if I couldn't. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm going to have to. I write in the bathroom. So, I mean...
So, laptop or desktop? Toilet paper, actually.
Yeah, so many times I love it when somebody, comes up to me or says something on my page or it's like a quote they really liked from my book, and I'm like, oh, thank you. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, I was totally taking a shit when I wrote that.
A key to the creative process.
That's the thing about being a writer. No one knows what's going on.
That's right.
Usually, your favorite authors are doing some not so pleasant things when they're writing your favorite books.
Yeah, it's true. Most of us, I've got a nice shirt on, but no pants.
You pretty much should assume that every author you read is not wearing pants.
Yeah. Although when you see the news anchors on television, they aren't wearing pants either. So I don't think we should be judged.
Yeah.
You judgy McJudgy pants out there.
No pants for traddies.
Yeah. So what's next? You've got your what was your most recent project? Was it Pins?
Pins.
Yeah.
Pins. But I also had a short story released in a Postmortem Press anthology, Fear the Abyss, and I haven't finished reading it, but I was reading it on my most recent vacation. And I mean, it has stories by Harlan Ellison and Jack Ketchum in it.
Wow.
But I actually liked a lot of the lesser known authors' stories. I was quite impressed. A lot of them I really enjoyed. But I have a story in there called Extraction, and it's a sci-fi horror story. And apparently people really love the first line, which I don't know how you couldn't love the line, "I can't stop jerking off at work." But it's actually an author friend of mine, Nelson, who's also in the Fear the Abyss anthology, just recorded that story for his podcast, The Wicked Library. So I listened to it first thing this morning. It was quite interesting to actually listen to what I wrote and then, kind of rock in place and on the bed for a while, being like, what's wrong with me? It's always weird to hear someone read your words aloud.
Yeah, I think people become writers because it's the only way. We're trying to monetize our pathology.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not a whole lot of socially acceptable ways to do that.
Yeah.
So, it's because otherwise, if we were accountants, we'd be weird. We'd probably be bad accountants. But.
Yeah, I just left my day job about 2 months ago where I was a manufacturing technician for a biotech lab. So I was definitely the weirdest manufacturing technician in the place. which was, I think, why I was separated from everyone else. Like, everyone sat in the same little, like, cubicle area, but I lived in a lab far away from people. Had my, like, little laptop back there, and people would pop in.
Wait a minute. You were in a lab. Were you in a cage in a lab?
There were cages in my lab. I don't know if I should go ahead and say I ever got inside there because,
We've already guessed.
Confidentiality.
So, you tell me you don't believe in writer's block. Tell me about that.
I don't believe in writer's block.
Thank you.
No, really, I get annoyed, probably a little too annoyed when people say, oh, I have the worst writer's block, and, for me, it's, if you're a writer, if you're passionate about writing and you love it more than anything in the world, if you're a writer, you write something. If you're stuck on your current story, work on something else. If you're not feeling all that inspired, go take a walk, go to a bar, go listen to people's conversations, as weird as that sounds. There's so much inspiration in the world, and there's really just no excuse for saying I can't write anything at all. You can always work on something, which I always say I don't get writer's block. I don't really have that problem because I work on like 18 things at a time, which I don't recommend. But I think I think it's a little bit laziness, which I totally understand. There are some days I just want to watch Netflix and not do anything, and that's fine, but just call it exhaustion or laziness. Don't call it writer's block, because if you want to write something, you can write something.
That's interesting. I wonder if the culture of writing has changed a little bit, because I hear people talk about writer's block less.
Mm-hmm.
What they talk about more is procrastination.
Oh, yeah.
As like,
yeah, that's another, yeah.
Could write if I could only start, but
yeah.
it's like constipation. I just
Well, I think a lot of people get a little too obsessed with that starting, like trying to get that perfect that opening. Like they think that if they get that perfect opening, the story will just unveil itself to them and they'll have no issues. Fuck the opening.
Mm-hmm.
Just write. Just start writing anything. You'll fix it in editing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sometimes that perfect first line comes to you. Sometimes your entire story before you even start writing. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you just start writing about a random... we were driving home from Florida, and I wanted to write a story called Auntie Grave, because I was at Disney World, and I saw this place called Auntie Gravities, but there was a tree in front of it, and I thought it said Auntie Grave, and I was like, oh, that sounds like a neat, horror story or something. So I knew I wanted to write a story called Auntie Grave. I just didn't know what I was writing about. So I just looked out the window as we're driving and wrote, the road is long and the briar's unending. I just started with a random line, and then from there it turned into a story, 3,000 words in about an hour and a half.
Funny, that opening sounds surprisingly gothic for Florida.
Yeah, it turned out to be like a kind of like a ghost story. And sometimes you just need to start. It doesn't matter if it's great. It probably won't be, A lot of stuff that, first draft is just complete garbage and needs to be rewritten, reworked, sentences need to be moved around, and then you can find the gold within the garbage.
How many drafts do you do?
It depends. I usually do just the first draft. I write by hand, which seems to be an oddity these days. And I type the first draft into the computer, print it out, do a revision in a binder, type that back into the computer, which sucks. Usually, I usually end up doing about 3 revisions in the binder, at least, before I submit it to a publisher or send it to my mom or something, if it's appropriate, and or to an editor friend or something like that. But yeah, it's usually about 3 minimum.
That sounds pretty time intensive. You're retyping it twice, really.
Yeah, I mean I call when the initial type in isn't so bad because I'm just like la, 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 just reading it off of what I wrote. But then typing in the revisions is what I call stabbing the alphabet. And I hate it because you're like, damn stupid revision. Find it. You know, just searching for that two words to replace with two other words. It's very annoying. But
Oh, do you work in Word?
I have yes, I have Word for Mac.
Okay. So switch to Scrivener and you'll be a much happier person.
Yeah, that's what people tell me. But I spent money on this on the program, the Office program.
Well, Scrivener is like $60, I think. Maybe even less. I'm not sure. I can't remember now. I think it was 60, but maybe it was even 40. But the point is that as far as because I'm going through that process right now where is the unending polish. Like what
Hmm.
I love to do most is go somewhere, sit, and just write and move forward. And right now I'm in this revision phase where it's, where you get to that point where you're just sick of your own work.
Yeah.
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 It's like I've polished this and I've polished this and I've polished this, and we're down to we're past the coarse sandpaper and we're into the stuff that isn't too harsh on your skin. And it's like, but you're just so sick of reading your words and you just want to sit down and write something new.
Hmm. Yeah.
And the thing with Scrivener is I'll bop around a manuscript so much easier now rather than Word because I'll search for something and it'll find it instantly. I can pop it back in and out.
Mm.
So the search and find replace and stuff that it's much easier than Word is. I had a little bit of a learning curve with compiling, but as far as a writing tool, I recommend that to everybody until they're sick of me. There's so many programs out there, and some of the stuff it's kind of funny. Like there's open source free stuff. There's stuff that gives you a bunch of features which I don't know anybody actually uses. Like
Yeah.
I don't need a name generator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Usually I just go on Facebook and steal one of my friends' last names.
Yeah. Well, I needed a name for a dentist, and I looked on my bookshelf behind me. It was like, oh, Neil Gaiman. So Neil for his first name, and J McInerney. So the dentist name is Neil McInerney. Next.
Yeah, really not that difficult unless you're looking for like a name that you want to mean something. I don't really think you have to put too much thought into it.
Yeah, and actually, I do that a lot, especially
Mhm.
in this book, because I've got my protagonist is a Asperger's boy in the middle of a world flu pandemic who has his special interest is English dictionaries and Latin phrases. So I, but I don't. What I do is just, for instance, there's if you just Google search Indian names like East Indian names,
Hmm.
and it gives you everything you need. Like because I was looking for significance in everybody's name, and not the dentist, obviously, but but there's some beautiful Indian names that they they harken back to mythology or
Sure.
trust, faith, hope, whatever, and it's fun to do that kind of. I wouldn't call it research. It's kind of like a um,
Kind of like an inside joke to yourself.
yeah, it's like an Easter egg,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like
Hmm.
in one of my crime novels, I was searching. I think it was New York or Chicago. I was searching for where to place these people, and there was this the white panel van,
Hmm.
which everybody calls a rape van now, but or child molester van. But there was this what I described a white rape van, and and so I went to this through this I don't know, it was Google Maps or whatever, and I found, oh, this is the cross street that I need to put into this book to place it in space. And when I went to the street view, there was a white van. And
Scary!
I almost thought about putting in a footnote.
You should! That's scary.
Go here.
Well, I actually had like I mean not creepy, but like one of those aha moments when I was writing my book Song of Eidolons, which is actually being re-released this month, next month. I the entire time the main character's name is Delaney Lortal, and I came up with the name Lortal because a lot of the book is about fairy tales and legends and stories and stuff, and she really loves to read. So I was like, lore tell. It's telling a story. Lore. You know, it was just kind of, but it was lore tall and or lore tale kind of thing. And so I had that name for the entire book, and then close to the end, I'm writing it, and I'm trying to write about where one of the characters who's related to her, where he came from and where he got his name, and I'm looking up stuff, and I see a place right where I had put them in the book in France called Lortal, France.
Ah.
It was spelled exactly the same. It was amazing.
That's cool.
I was just like, I was working on it at my day job, and I'm just sitting at the computer, and I'm like, what? It was amazing. I just, that book for me was one of those books that I was lucky enough that it just kind of tumbled out with no problems whatsoever. Everything just kind of fell into place in a beautiful way. And I think that's why it's one of my favorite, if not my favorite plot to a book I've written so far.
Do you ever put a friend in a book, like the full name?
I don't know if I've had the full name, but I've definitely had a lot of last names, first names, street addresses. I've definitely had some people read my book, and it's like, hey, I lived in that apartment where that guy got blown up.
I had a...
You know, so, and there's a lot of inside jokes and stuff, so a lot of time my best friend will read the book, and she'll be like, I caught that one.
That's cool. As I had a... I'm... It's kind of funny. I don't think people actually do that enough. As long as you have permission from the person. It's just... Yeah. I had this great opportunity. A friend of mine, I was writing, I guess it was the first crime novel I had, and I needed a henchman. And I had this buddy who, he's fine now, but at the time he was going through cancer treatment. Mm-hmm. And I got him on Skype, and actually that was, we've had a lot of problems with Skype today. That was the only other time I'd ever had troubles with Skype, and I think it was at his end, where I could see him, but I didn't have any audio. So, but he could hear me. So I'm talking to him, and I'm saying, yeah, I know you're having a rough time with the treatment and all that, but, you know, everything's going to go great and whatnot. And I want to use your name for one of the henchmen. And it was funny because he couldn't talk to me, but all of a sudden he was doing the thumbs up, yeah!
There you go.
And it was just this nice little gift to somebody who was going through such a rough time. And I thought, we should, as long as we have their permission, we should do that with everybody.
Yeah, well, that's definitely nice. I've had a couple of friends, you know, in my book Rabbits in the Garden. They were like, really? Why did you give the rapey psychiatrist my last name? You needed one. What?
Rapey psychiatrist? You? I just thought.
I know. Yeah, I've definitely had a couple people be like, why did you do that? I'm like, oh. I'm like, if you're friends with me, you should just know what's going to happen. None of you are safe.
That's right.
You don't have to piss me off. I'm just going to do it anyway.
Well, that's funny is, you know, it used to be, I haven't heard about that complaint lately, but I remember back when I worked in traditional publishing, one of the things when we got the slush pile stuff, the things that we were told to look out for was the autobiographical first novel. Mm-hmm. But I think even the, you know, wildest sci-fi is because it's all about relationships, and I think that writers cannibalize everything, every experience, whether you're making stuff up, maybe you're making stuff up, but you still have your worldview that's shaped by real experiences. There's a whole lot of nonfiction in fiction.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So when I see these relationships work out, it's my thing about Walking Dead, is I love watching Walking Dead, but there was a season there where they didn't have enough zombie action,
Uh-huh.
so it was kind of like argue, 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 zombies, argue, 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 zombies.
And the arguments didn't even propel the story forward in a lot of episodes, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were glad to see Rick's wife go.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I haven't seen anybody say, "What? We can't do without her."
Yeah. What will I do without her constant whining?
And where the fuck is Carl? He's never in the house.
Yeah.
Although it's funny what they've done with that character, because I love that the kid is the character who's turning into a little badass now.
I love these getting so grizzled.
Yeah, and there was this great Facebook meme after he killed somebody. There's this Facebook thing where he's pointing the gun at the camera, going, "Go ahead, ask me one time. Ask me, where's Carl? Ask me." I cut you.
Yeah, he's definitely helping the show.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. I
Well-
was not so happy with the way it ended last season.
Well, we've got a whole raft of new red shirts to destroy. So,
That's true.
although there's a couple things about that struck me as weird. Why wouldn't they go to Woodbury?
I don't know. I don't know. Why didn't Andrea, every time she was like in a crowd, be like, "Hey, by the way, the governor is fucking nuts." Like, all it takes is a second, instead of, where they had Merle and God, his brother is escaping me.
Daryl?
Yeah, they're facing off, supposed to fight each other in front of everybody, and she's like, there are people holding her back. She's like, no, stop it. Don't do this. Instead of, okay, keep holding on, but by the way, everyone, the governor has a bunch of zombie heads. And, he's crazy.
The thing that bugged me most about the last episode, we should be saying spoilers.
Yeah, spoiler.
If you haven't seen Walking Dead by now, fuck you. This is what we're saying.
Yeah.
But really, what bugged me most about it was Andrea in the chair, totally unable to multitask.
Yeah. Oh, right?
It's like, you don't need to stop and is he breathing? Just get the pliers. But the larger thing about The Walking Dead that kind of bugs me, and I'm not sure if I've said this before on this podcast, but nobody listens to this podcast, so I'll say it again. The thing is, what are these people fighting so fucking hard to live for? I mean,
No.
is the goal that you live long enough that you can die of an enlarged prostate or
Yeah.
or a tooth abscess because there aren't any dentists around? It's just, there's no hope. Like, there's in my serial, at least there's some place to go
Right.
where maybe they'll be more safe, and that may not even be true, but there's some goal where people have a reason to live. But if you're in the middle of The Walking Dead, the most logical thing to do is to put a gun to your head. I just don't get it.
And I don't know. I personally do not understand why, it's like, oh my God, I can't become a zombie. What of my soul? Like, like it's a big, like, who gives a shit? I'll be a zombie if that's what happens to me. I'll just, eat people, and I'm not gonna. It doesn't seem like they're very cognizant of what they're doing. They don't seem to be the people. They actually make it pretty clear that they're not the people they once were. So who gives a fuck if my body is just walking around animated eating people?
Yeah, it becomes an amoral thing. I think the other thing I don't care for is slow zombies.
Yeah.
Because I think that if we lived in
Unless they're fat, because then they were always slow.
but they're hungrier and motivated.
Yeah.
No, I think that if we lived in a slow zombie universe,
I could get away.
you'd be shooting zombies a couple on the way to work every day.
Yeah.
It would be like the way we deal with coyotes.
Yeah. Right. It was always what bothered me about Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I'm just like, I think I could get away from that guy. Like in the woods, I think I'd be okay, you know? And then I wouldn't just go to the first house I saw, because clearly that's where he lives.
I think that is the difference between a good horror movie and a bad horror movie, is whether the chick screams and runs upstairs where there's no exit.
Yeah.
I hate it whether it's a manuscript or whether it's a movie. If somebody has to do something really fucking dumb in order for it to work, then they kind of lose me. It's like, unless it's funny.
Yeah. Or if, like, you know that there's a shotgun upstairs.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you can shoot your way back downstairs.
This is the thing. These problems are so easy, like the tropes, for instance, they're so easy to write around. So it's stupid to run upstairs unless you think there's a shotgun upstairs. You run upstairs and you find that there is a shotgun, but it has no shells because the killer took out the shells. Okay, good. You've got them trapped and you've given a reason. So, and you're not guilty of lazy writing. That's clever, and you know it makes something dumb make sense.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
But when it gets down to gets back to this violent mechanics of they're gonna tear those co-eds apart. I remember seeing Jason. They weren't called Jason. You know the
Friday the 13th.
Yeah, the Friday the 13th movies. I saw one of them with a bunch of my friends, and I'd never seen one before. This is back in university, and I was watching this movie, and there's a bunch of really beautiful women who, you know, get gutted on rafts, and there's a guy in a wheelchair for some reason, and two things about that experience. There's always some maniac sitting directly behind you going, "Oh, that's so great. I want to do that right now." And I'm sitting there going, so is there a detective, or is there somebody who's going to be useful, helpful? I mean, it's just pure splatter. But I guess I'm aiming for a niche that is a little more cerebral than that.
I think it is. I think it's a lot harder these days to write believable horror, just because of all the access we have to like forensics and cell phones, and like when I was writing Pins, I gave it to my friend who's an editor when I was done, and she's like, "Jessica, they're all at a party. A killer is killing people, and no one is calling for help. Where are all their cell phones? Where is the internet?" You know, and I was like, "God damn it!" I'm like, I'm still writing like it's 1987 or something, you know? I totally, you know, a lot of times I will get so into the story, I kind of zone out on those little details, which is why an editor or a beta reader is so important. But yeah, I think it's a lot harder. It's a lot harder to kill people and get away with it these days, which makes horror novels, crime writing kind of thing a little bit trickier, unless you go ahead and put it in like a sci-fi thing, you know, universe where you can just make up your own rules, which is what I prefer to do.
Well, I think there are a bunch of writers who actually started setting their books in 1987 so they wouldn't have to deal with cell phones.
Yeah.
And I think there are ways around it. Like for instance, you could set them up. It's that the trope of the lonely island or the bridge is out, you know, and
or in my case, kind of like a cabin in the woods kind of deal, abandoned hotel in the woods.
You can call them, but that doesn't mean they can get to you. That kind of stuff.
No.
The storm, you know, like Key Largo, right?
You gotta do what you gotta do.
Well, I'm really happy to talk to you about this stuff because I don't get to talk to many writers about this kind of details about writing. I wanted to ask you one more thing. Is Do you think the anthology helps with sales?
Um, I think an anthology with a big name tied to it does.
Hmm. Because
Um,
I don't know that many people who buy anthologies.
yeah, I don't either. I think they sell better on Kindle. I mean, I personally love anthologies because for lack of a better term, it's great bathroom material.
Mm.
I mean, short stories. I mean, especially anthologies of flash fiction. You can just go through something really quick without having to devote too much time to, a novel or something like that. So it's ideal for me as a writer where I don't really get to read too much these days because I'm working on my stuff all the time. So I love to just kind of interject a cool short story into my day or into my routine, just kind of to break it up, so I'm not just reading myself over and over and over again.
Oh, that's such a good point because there's so many people who, like, well, for instance, I just was listening to a podcast where somebody was saying blogging is dead. You shouldn't be spending time on blogging because what you could be doing is writing books and putting that up on Amazon. And Amazon is the new blog. And somebody else said, yeah, but you can't build a list on the blog on Amazon. You can only build a list on your own website. And as somebody who owns 5 blogs, I thought, oh yeah, how much I really have to do this time management thing. And I noticed what I'm doing is I'm making my posts shorter,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm thinking, yeah, I've written an awful lot of short fiction, like all the short stories. Um, I don't know if we're actually, as a culture, if we're getting away from reading and and in particular, getting away from reading long form stuff.
I think in a lot of cases, in my experience, I think that we are, which is why I see a lot of writers aiming for this crazy 70,000 to 100,000 word count when they're writing. And I'm like, first of all, I don't aim for word counts. I just tell the story that needs to be told. Then in editing, I'll extend it if I feel it needs to. But some of my books fall right around 60,000, which I think is a great number for, someone who's, like a great summer read. You take it on the bus, you take it on the beach. So many books of mine, I get in the reviews, I read it all in one sitting.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. It's great when you can read it. You're so into a story that you can read it. You look at it, you look forward, and you're like, oh, there's not that many pages left. And they just knock it out in one sitting. I think that's great. Um, Especially for me, if I'm reading, The Night Circus right now, and it's taken me 8 months to get 90 pages in, seriously, because I'm just kind of reading bits and pieces at a time because I just don't have the time to devote to sit down for 5 hours and read the whole thing. And it's not even that long.
I think that's why the serial, that's what I'm betting on for this Plague of Days, is I think that giving it to people like TV episodes,
Mm-hmm.
I think
I
that's
think
going to
that
catch on more than it has.
I think that those are a new trend. That is, I mean, Amazon does the serials. I have a serial coming out next year. I think that they're great, and the fact that I think the serial I'm doing, each story can't be longer than 1,500 words, which is nice, short, tiny little vignette of someone's life, and it's every month for the entire year. So it's just someone's entire year in tiny little vignettes. So I think that is a great trend that's coming in. It's kind of coming on the heels of the flash fiction movement.
I notice Amazon has started up the fan fiction thing too, where they pay a royalty to the author as well as to, well, I shouldn't say a royalty. They'll split the fee, whatever, of the sale. They'll split it between the original author and the fan fiction writer. And I'm not sure
Yeah.
how I feel about that because I get so attached to my characters. I don't know how I feel about somebody else kind of taking them over and doing stuff with them.
Yeah, I mean, I've never really been into fan fiction just because I like to create my own characters and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know how that's gonna work,
Yeah.
or how well that's gonna work. Uh, I don't know. It just seems strange to me. I mean, the only thing I wrote like an erotica version of The Last Unicorn like years ago that I totally just put in a drawer and forgot about because ew. I think that's the closest I ever came, and it doesn't deserve to see the light of day like a lot of my stuff from the beginning. Uh, but yeah, I don't know. I think that if you can write fan fiction, why not try your hand at your own fiction?
Yeah, I wonder if that started up because somebody said 50 Shades of Grey started out as a Twilight fan fiction.
Yeah.
And somebody said, "Oh, there's money here. I smell profit here." Anyway, hey, Jessica, really, I want to thank you for being so patient. We had so many technical difficulties with this podcast today. I'm not exactly sure. Like, I'll have to cobble stuff together and do leveling, and that I've never had this many problems with Skype or call
It must
recorder.
have been my internet because as soon as I restarted it, it seems.
Yeah, you've been fine. Actually,
Yep.
it was funny. There was like a little couple hitches where I thought, "Oh, here we go again," and it
Yeah.
just smoothed out again. It's like, what's going on there? We could still blame the sunspots, but thank you so much for being so patient, and thank you for being a guest on the Cool People podcast, because you know what this means. Do you know what this means?
Am I cool?
You're cool.
Hey.
Hey.
Oh, wow, now I just lost it all. I am not the Fonz.
You snatched defeat from the jaws of victory.
Thank you so much for having me. I seriously had a blast.
Thank you for being on the Cool People podcast. And